What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. So last night, this aired last night. I believe this channel is called a Gray Line, something like that. I apologize if I'm messing that up. It's called John Gotti Dirty Cops, aligned with the. There you go, with SSU agent Devin Hawks. You know, I don't like to even say the names of these organizations, but you see it. You can read it up there on top. Oh, I forgot it's going to be small in the corner, but I think it's called a Gray Line. Now, my understanding is that these guys, this is a retired sergeant, I believe, detective sergeant. I believe these guys are all, I believe, former law enforcement. The one down here, I don't know if you can see the arrow. This is Devin Hawks. Before we get into the video, those of you that have seen the movie Rain Man, old enough to see it, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you who haven't seen it, the fuck's wrong with you? Nah, just play it. Those of you that haven't seen it, go and check it out. And Rain Man was basically an idiot savant. I don't know why they put the idiot part in that word, but you know that's what the definition of it is. And he was brilliant in certain ways and not in others. And I'm not saying that is Devin Hawks. What I'm saying is this. We used to refer to him as Rain Man. I would bet money that he is the most knowledgeable single individual when it comes to California prison gangs, history and such. Now, is all of his knowledge going to be completely accurate? Of course not. You know, he gets his information from people that sometimes have an agenda. So they're going to speak some of the truth, mix in a little bit. You know, a lot of these guys, when they tell their stories to law enforcement, they damn near break their arm, patting themselves on the back, making themselves greater than what they were. So when I saw that he was on here, I was like, And so they shouted me out yesterday, I guess, and I tapped in just to say Cubo. But there's a portion of this video that Devin was talking about, or Mr. Hawks. I don't know him well enough. I'm not going to call him by his first name. Mr. Hawks was talking about the Pelican Bay riot. And you guys see the thumbnail and you see the title of this video. I want to speak to a portion of what he's talking about. So let's hear what he's saying. I don't know. I think I'm close to that point. Let's see.
Well, there already was a group of leaders out there operating in B facility, but there were people that came out of the SHU with direct instructions.
Hey, Devin, one of the reasons
now,
why we're talking about
this riot, there had been an incident involving a guy called.
Go ahead, Devin.
Well, Munster, I'll just use him as his nickname, had a conflict with some Sureños who were under the authority of the Mexican mafia.
I've talked about this. I've touched on this stuff in my videos about the riot. It was actually one individual, and I'm no Devin. I know Mr. Hawks knows the exact individual. He's not saying the name. I won't either. But he actually, Monster directed a comment to one individual. That individual, I know him well, straight up fool. He wasn't having it. And so all of the raza from Southern California stood up, and Monster didn't want that problem, straight up. You know, because he told the individual, he told the homie, hey, if you don't like what I said, because the homie told him, hey, mind your own business. This ain't your conversation. Stay your way out of it. And Monster's response was, well, if you don't like what I'm saying, we can handle it. The homie stood straight up and goes, let's handle this shit then. When he went towards him and the other homie started grabbing weapons, he was like, hold up, hold up. And the homie was like, what do you mean, hold up? He said, you said if I don't like it, we can handle it. Well, I want to handle it. And he said, yeah, but I didn't mean it like that. I mean, we could talk about it. And the homie was like, that's not what that definition means to me. The cops saw what was happening. The blacks saw. They came over to aid Monster. Two groups, grouping up. The cops hit the buzzer. So that's what happened in the shop. But it was actually Monster directed one comment at one dude. But the way it works is everybody felt disrespected.
And they tried to resolve this problem with Monster and with the blacks, and
For months
didn't really
and
have a lot of
months.
success. And guys that came out of the shoe came out with orders to assault the blacks. And so these two leadership views or directions were in conflict with one another.
And I'll say this. I think I mentioned it before. The guys that came out of the shoe. Okay, let me rewind. The guys that were in place, only one dude was actually liked and respected. The other guys on his crew were pretty much despised by everybody. However, if somebody had an issue coming on that yard, they got it. The guys were running a tight ship. It was the interactions with others. It was that, you got to remember, Pelican Bay was full of gangsters, right? And nobody was better than anybody. But most on that crew, except for one, carried themselves like they were above other people. And it rubbed people the wrong way. I don't think they would, if the riot wouldn't have happened, there would have been something that would have happened at some point to them because of it, right? But again, they were getting the job done. That's what's expected. The crew that came out, that he's talking about, the crew that came out, pretty much everybody really liked them dudes. They were very humble. They had been put in work. These were serious cats, but they were humble. They were the way everybody else was. I personally had a conversation with one of them that I knew well. And I told him, I'm not picking sides, We like you guys. Everybody likes you vatos more than them. But the way you're going about it is wrong, Holmes. Good luck. One and only conversation I had with that guy. That guy wound up committing suicide later in the shoe in C2, I believe in 2005, right after breakfast. But that was a conversation I had with him.
But the one that won out was the more violent. And they went and armed all the Sureños, and they said, with the authority of the Mexican mafia, we're going to assault the blacks. And so on that day, in February 23rd, 2000, the Sureños attacked the blacks. And officers responded. I saw their response.
This is the guy on top. I can't remember his name. I apologize to Contreras, I think. But he's going to ask a question. And this is what I want to get into. Not all this other stuff.
A good friend of mine had the ambulance service, and he committed all of his resources that day to moving people from the prison to the local hospital. There were several prisoners shot. A lot of them were stabbed. It was probably the worst riot that we ever had at Pelican Bay.
Hey, Devin, one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you this, because this is one of the shows that I watch. I watch this show. Actually, I enjoy. I believe this gentleman goes by Dubs. I believe he's from Santa Barbara area. I don't know his real name, but he actually had a show where he talks about why the blacks had no knives during the Pelican Bay riot. He was actually there. I enjoy watching him. There's another show that I also watch, stories written by a current prisoner. But this guy was very good. He explained it. And so when he talked about that, I mean, did staff know that there was going to be a riot that day? Or did you guys knew that tension was high, but did you know that day that there was going to be a riot? Because the way he made it sounded like everybody got caught with their pants down, including the African Americans that were in the yard.
Staff didn't know that was going to happen that day.
Okay, I want to stop it there. Mr. Hawks worked in the shoe. He didn't work on the yard. He wasn't on B facility that day. But we initially were going to have the riot, I believe it was in December. And I talked about somebody locked it up. Told the cops, hey, if you run yard, there's going to be a fucking massacre out there. Don't run yard. And they didn't run yard that day. And it made us have to, I mean, it's warfare, right? The blacks asked, hey, what's that all about? And they were told, nah, that dude just wanted to lock up. He just made up a story. And so everybody stood down to wait for the blacks to let their guard down. That's basically what it was. But the cops knew about the monster incident. I'm not saying that Mr. Hawks is being disingenuous because he wasn't there, right? But there were COs that made comments to people that day that it was going to go down. Now, what I want to point out, and Mr. Hawks can check this easy. So there were so many write-ups. The incident packet was so big that it was a 2-volume booklet, right? Or not even booklet. It was 2-volume book of all the 115s, right? There was also a packet that the IGI had put together. And we felt at the time that was their attempt by what they were explaining in there and how Southerners are allowed to be on the yard. It was viewed as, holy shit, the CDC is now going to try to work on removing all Southern raza from the main lines. That packet made it seem as though that was a plan. They can't do that though. You know, you can't snatch up a disruptive group like that. A prison gang, yes. But anyways, we're not going to get into all that. But here's what I wanted to bring up. In the reports, okay, B facility, there's a fence in between every 2 buildings, okay? Yard 1, it's all the same yard. But they call yard 1, that's 1 and 2 block, in front of 1 and 2 block. Nobody can hang out right there. Yard 2 is 3 and 4. Yard 3 is 5 and 6. Yard 4 is 7 and 8, okay? Between 5, 6, 7, and 8, they leave that gate open. Everybody can intermingle. 3 and 4 block can only intermingle with each other, right? They come out with by themselves, and there's a gate that separates. Okay. In the report, the gunner in the main tower clearly said that he noticed there was no Hispanics on the 4-yard. Now, the 4-yard is where the paisas usually played soccer. And a lot of the raza from Southern California would bust down on the walkway by the heavy bag. And so it was clear to him something's not right. He said he noticed that all of the Southern Hispanics were grouping up on the 3 and 4 yards. So when you look at the riot and you watch the video where you see the basketball court, that one's called the 4-yard. No, excuse me. That one's called the 3-yard. So everybody was congregated on the 2 and 3 yard. So to the left of the basketball court where that fence is, that's the 2-yard. Where the basketball court is the 3-yard. I'm getting ahead of myself. The officer said that he noticed everybody was, all the Southern Hispanics were congregated in the 2 and 3 yards. Right? He said he made a phone call to his sergeant of his observation. Guess what the sergeant did? He went up into the tower and grabbed a rifle. Went up on the roof. It's in the report. And he went up on the roof. One of them went on the roof. There was 3 gunners in the central tower that day. A sergeant was one of them. And one of them went up on the roof. So my question is, why didn't they recall the yard? It wouldn't have stopped it. If they would have said yard recall, it would have jumped immediately. But it was always a thing where it's like, when you saw the report and you saw what was written, it was like, damn, eh? And when you understand that all the inmates that were shot, 15 inmates were shot, and I believe one officer shot 11 of them. So we had where Sharkey died. Sharkey did die. The one black inmate, the one black convict that was shot, we were told died multiple times on the operating table, and they kept pumping blood into him, and he survived. There was also another individual from 18th Street. He got shot kind of in the groin area, not in, when I'm saying the groin area, like by the hip where the aortal branch is, or the aortal tree, whatever you want to call it. And the bullet busted him up in there. They had to fly him out in a helicopter. He died multiple times on the operating table. They kept pumping blood into him, and he survived. So it was by the grace of God that only one person was killed by an officer that day. But it was completely clear that one officer did the majority of the shootings, and he was playing for keeps. So when it said the officers didn't know, that I just don't believe it. There was too many rumors going around for too many months. I remember when they ran in the sections and you could just hear toilets flush. And the cops just started laughing. They ran in their pod raid basically to make motherfuckers panic and flush their knives. Me and my Sally weren't flushing shit. We hooped it immediately, painfully, because we didn't have time. And a lot of us did. But I just wanted to make sure I talked about that, man, because I just, if I believe that the blacks, for the most part, were caught slipping because they were told everything's cool. That dude in December, that dude lied, eh? Fuck that guy. He's not here no more. That's why he did that. He wants us to get into it. Everything's cool. Just get rid of Monster. That's what was told. And they believed
the
it.
rivalry between the Sureños and Mexican Mafia with the blacks is historic.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that. Let's see. No disrespect to him.
Yeah, it was. What else? I mean, we're prepared all the time to respond, and we know that something could happen on any day. And the staff that responded that day, they acted beautifully and professionally. They all got recognized for the good work that they did in the response. But there were a lot of inmates injured. I would say probably more Hispanics were shot than blacks in the response.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I believe there was 15 shot, only one African American, one black was shot, and 14 were Hispanic, and one died. For those of you that have not seen the video, I
don't want to play. He's gonna show a clip of the actual riot. I don't want to do that because that footage belongs to NBC or National Geographic or whoever. And I hear, I have watched those videos. Like, I think it was a National Geographic one or MSNBC. I don't know which one it was. And it cracks me up when they say it was a well-coordinated attack and everybody was ready for one. Look at the video. The Southerners were caught flat-footed on that. There was an individual that decided he was going to go down in history for starting that. I could tell you, they on that side of the yard, from what I heard, there was a plan. And the plan was to target every single black shot caller on that yard. But somebody jumped the gun. The riot kicked off, and then you see Southerners like, if you look at the riot, watch the Southerners. They're on the top of the handball court, and they're over there by the tables, by the pull-up bars. And you see where they start looking around like, oh shit, they're trying to locate a target. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. As shit goes down in war, period, right? Even out here, I'm sure in the military, you got a plan, and then the plan goes all to hell immediately. I just wanted to clarify this because I think it's important. When we're talking about something this serious where a young man lost his life, regardless of, he was stabbing somebody or, he has a family. I don't know if he has kids, but he has a family that to this day doesn't have the answers. And even if we gave him all the answers in the world, it's not enough for him. But it should be that the answers are clear, that the answers are unbiased. And I think Mr. Hawks is being unbiased. He only knows what he knows from the reports. Right, and whatever else, but if anybody were to actually show the reports, I think it's very intriguing that the tower cop noticed everything building up, notified his sergeant, And there was no attempt to recall the yard. Instead, it was, well, let me head on up there and grab one of them hunting rifles you got. And then let me go ahead and shoot 11 people. I don't know if he's the sergeant's the one that did it, but I know for a fact one cop did the majority of the shooting, and 3 people could have easily died that day. If it wasn't for God and them doctors, 2 more would have died. And would have been 1 black dude and 1 Mexican dude. No. Matter of fact, the one from 18 he's a Chapin. He's not Mexican. He's a homie, but he was a Chapin. So I wanted to clarify when I say 1 Mexican. It would have been a Chapin and a black. So you would have had a Mexican, a Chapin, who's from 18, and a black, all killed by a CO. Even though they noticed the grouping, the fact that people were not away from where everybody else was, they wanted to make sure everybody was in close quarters. I remember we talked about that. We're like, damn, man. And I'll say this. When the black convict came back from the hospital, and this goes back to how people think it's always personal. It's not, man. It's business, right? But when he came back, in my building, I think there was 5 homies that were shot, that were still on the yard, and would go to get their wounds cleaned every day. You know, they hit them like through the calf muscle, in the knee, I think one in the foot. I don't remember, right? I don't remember the injuries, but they were all in my building. And one day they were being escorted to medical to get their dressings changed and get their wounds cleaned, right? And one of the COs that was doing the escort, he let them know, hey, you know that one N-E-R that got shot? We brought him back today. He's an 8 block. And he was laughing. And the homies told me, one of the homies asked him, hey, why did you call him that though? And the CO shut up. You know, so I guess he thought that people were going to be like, that's funny. That ain't funny. And I think, you know, it never dawned on me to tell you guys until I mentioned it right now, that I think it was a 5 or 7 in my building that were shot. And still, because you got to remember, there was no room to put anybody anywhere. People participated in the riot and went right back to their cells. There was a handful that went to the SHU. There was a couple that went to Ad Seg. At the time, they had A1, 2, 3, 4, and B7 were all Ad Segs. Pelican Bay went crazy. But there were a lot of dudes that had got shot. And they were getting their dressings cleaned. Getting their wounds cleaned. They were still in their cell. Limping around. With a fucking knife on them. Waiting for that door to pop. So they could limp their asses out there and possibly get killed by a CO. Possibly get killed by their rival. Or possibly kill somebody. That's the reality of this shit. It's not just, you know, a 5-minute clip by a news agency that doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. You know, people that live through that shit, people that live through that life, it doesn't have to be Pelican Bay's riot. It could be any riot you survive. And then, you know, when people talk about it and it's kind of like frivolous talk, it's like, damn, man, you know, that shit was real. Anyways, that's my video for today, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are interested in this channel, again, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to remember to put the link to the channel. They talk about stuff I would never talk about, so maybe that would be interesting to you. As former law enforcement, I'm sure they feel a lot more comfortable doing that than I ever would, right? So with that said, hold it now. Almost forgot. Check out my boy Fig, Food and Fallons. Food and Fallons is traveling the United States, you guys, and doing food reviews in a bunch of different places. He's got a video coming out today. I know he's recording either today or tomorrow with a hip-hop legend, especially on the West Coast, a West Coast legend. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But do me a favor, if you're not subscribed to his channel, make sure you subscribe to his channel. Tell him Dub said Cuvo or what's cracking. Either one, it's all good. That said, everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love.